when you send them to school, you pack up their lunch, it looks all beautiful. You've cut things in cute shapes and different sizes, and you have the bento box with all of those different little compartments, and you've filled them up with colorful foods. And then at the end of the day, when they've returned home and you're cleaning things out, and almost all the food, or maybe absolutely all of it, comes right back to you. And it really leaves you scratching your head. Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for just joining in. This is really, really fun for me. I absolutely love doing these episodes and sharing what I know with you all. So, my name is Christine, if you don't know me, and I am here. My job is to make meal times fun and easy and as nutritious as possible. So if this is an area of interest to you, if you have what you would call a picky eater, or a selective eater or fussy eater, please make sure you subscribe below so you don't miss any content. I post content almost every day on these topics. We talk about detox, emotional eating, hormones. We talk about everything related to food, clean eating, being healthy here. So, and I give lots and lots of strategies for parents. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, today's topic is a huge one, I think, for parents. And what it is really when your kids are not eating in school. And I know how incredibly stressful that is for parents. Because when you send them to school, you pack up their lunch, it looks all beautiful. You've cut things in cute shapes and different sizes, and you have the bento box with all of those different little compartments, and you've filled them up with colorful foods. And then at the end of the day, when they've returned home and you're cleaning things out, and almost all the food, or maybe absolutely all of it, comes right back to you. And it really leaves you scratching your head like, well, what happened today? Why didn't you eat anything? What's going on? And I can imagine that if that happens day after day after day, that it will absolutely drive you to the brink. And you're going to probably start getting angry at your child. And depending on how old they are and like how they're able to or not able to communicate, like why they did or did not eat what they did, during the day, that's just going to add to it. So this episode is all about what you can do to help them to eat more and troubleshoot why they're actually not eating in the first place. So it's sort of two parts here that we're going to talk about. So the first part here is some strategies. So let's give you some strategies. And I have, about 5 different strategies that you could implement right away to help you getting your kids eating more of what you are sending in with them during the day. And to be honest, the reason we want our kids to eat during the day, right, is because right, they're in school. So we want them to be at their best, at their peak. And sometimes when you have not eaten, you might kind of fall into that little lull, or have trouble focusing. So obviously our goal as parents is to send them in with food that's going to keep them sharp and help them focus and learn and be the best kid that they can, right? That's our goal. At least that would be what I would think my goal is. Perhaps you have a different goal, but that's what comes to mind for me, at least, right? So, I'm not sure. Everyone obviously sends their kids with different food, different lunch boxes, different everything, right? So, unless you're one of my one-to-one coaching clients, I really can't give you super specifics in, this is a general, right? So, if you need more specific help, of course, you can visit our website and you can work with me or one of my team members directly to help you specifically with your child's food issues, right? So I'm just going to be speaking generally here. So what I want you to do as you're listening is to take what resonates with you. And honestly, that is how it should be for every episode, right? All of this stuff is general. And the people that are listening, you're going to hear something within each episode probably that will resonate with you. And other things, they just won't, or it won't make sense to you. It won't feel right to you. And I highly suggest you ignore all of those things that don't feel right to you. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And, that's my recommendation for you. Right. So, hopefully it all resonates with you. That'd be great, right? If everything worked well for you and you felt good about it. But, see what feels right. So let's get started with strategy number 1. Now, this is a strategy we teach all of our families, and I am always posting about this and preaching about this, but please send your child with a preferred food, right? Now, it doesn't have to be always like a dessert preferred food. When I say preferred food, it might just be a preferred fruit or a preferred vegetable or, some nuts or something like that. But something preferred, something that when they open it, they're going to go like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to eat that. Right. Now, I would suggest that you don't always have the exact same preferred food in there every day. That's just not ideal. It's just how kids can get stuck on certain things. But in general, a preferred food, is advisable. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot of it. It can be a small portion of it, but something that when they open it up, they are going to at least gravitate and start maybe with that one preferred food. Okay. Now, I do want to do a little small tangent here. If they're not eating their preferred food, you're going to want to stick around for the end of the episode where we're going to kind of troubleshoot why they're not eating, and trying to figure that out. And that's going to come into play a little bit later in the episode. But for right now, I'm going to keep going with some of the strategies, right? So, setting a preferred food is one of these strategies. And another strategy is cutting the food into small bite-sized pieces. So, there's a few reasons for that. But, one of them is when they're, hanging out with friends and talking and chatting and stuff, just being able to pick up a small piece and pop it in their mouth might be the difference between them eating that food and not eating that food. And I know it seems so small and insignificant to us as adults, but we have to really try to pretend that we are kids again for a moment. And sometimes those little snacky foods, right? Like party foods, like think popcorn sized, or those little mini apps like chips and stuff. Those things that are super easy to grab and just pop in your mouth. Right? Those are the things that are always gone first from parties because it's easy for people to talk and chat and eat. And when they're in school and they're chatting with their friends and we're trying to get them to also eat, we want to give them things that are going to be snacky like that. So even if it's not, even if it's a sandwich, you might want to cut it up into small bite-sized pieces that they can just pinch and pop into their mouth. Okay, so that's strategy number 2, cutting food into small bite-sized pieces. Okay, strategy number 3, actually have them help you plan what's going to go into the lunchbox. So having them be part of either the shopping, list making, or even the prepping. Maybe it's the night before or the morning of. But having them actually be a part of it in some way, shape, or form will kind of get some of their buy-in and increase the chances of them actually eating at school. So, again, of course, they're going to choose their preferred foods, but having other foods on the list, and that's something that we always recommend and have you do anyway is, making a list of all of the foods that they eat in all different categories so that you can easily choose from that list what it is, that they might be having, for that day, right? So that is tip number 3, letting them help with meal planning. Tip number 4 is to decrease the portion size. So if you're noticing, maybe you've tried some of those strategies before and they're still not eating, try putting less, maybe even half of whatever it is that you are putting on. And you might say, well, less than half would literally just be one piece. Maybe you just put one piece of that particular food. Try just decreasing the portion size and see if that helps at all. Sometimes just seeing a lot of an item is just overwhelming, and it might actually make them not want to have any of it if there's a lot. So just by decreasing the portion sizes, maybe even putting one or two small pieces of that food item might be the difference of them picking one of those pieces up and having it versus not. So definitely something that is worth a try. Okay. And my last strategy here is to add some dipping options. Okay, so a lot of our kids, not all of them, but a lot of our kids will have a flavor or condiment of choice that they really love. And so, for example, it might be ketchup or barbecue sauce or mayo, or maybe it's peanut butter or chocolate or fluff or something, whatever it is that they love, but something that's almost like a little add-on or a little extra thing. Having some dipping options for them to dip, even if it's, I know it's not necessarily healthy, it might sound crazy, but if they love fluff and you have these little cucumber sticks, having them dip the cucumber sticks into the fluff might be the difference between them eating it and not eating it. Or, a little bit of Nutella, like a hazelnut chocolate spread, something like that. That might be the difference between them trying it and not trying it. So that might actually be something that helps. Now, of course, it has to be something that, won't spoil during the day, depending on how many hours it will be until they get to lunch. But that strategy has worked. That works really well for us when we even outside of the lunchbox. So, I think within a lunchbox it would work. And a lot of those cute little bento boxes they have now have these little tiny circular compartments anyway that would be just perfect for like a condiment or something like that for dipping in. So don't forget that key one. So I hope that these strategies are super helpful to you. If you are finding value in this, please make sure you comment below and let us know which strategies you've tried or will try or excited to try. I love absolutely to hear all of your stories and, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And, I love troubleshooting with people. So that's always so fun for me to see what the listeners are thinking as they listen. So please subscribe below if you have not already. And now let's get into why kids actually are not eating at school. So some of the troubleshooting of like trying to figure out and get in their head really about, well, like, why did this come back in the first place? Right. So we have to really consider the environment and the child. And, I don't know exactly all of the listeners, what your children are like and what their sensory systems are like. And again, everyone's sensory system does vary from day to day, but some kids more than others, they might be overwhelmed by lots of things visually, lots of things auditorily. So that means that, a big, loud, crowded lunchroom, that might overwhelm their sensory system just so much that they kind of can't get it together to sit and eat and focus on one thing, right? They might be kind of become scattered and they might be wanting to talk to different people, or, they might like go to start something with their lunch and then just get so distracted. Of course, that's not what every kid is going to be like, but think about your kid and how they normally do when you're out with them in like kind of crowded and noisy environments. You know, um, I'll absolutely give you an example. So for my son, when we are out in a crowded, noisy environment. And, sometimes, some days he does really well, and some days it's a lot harder. But I know ahead of time that he might have a hard time eating in that environment. And sometimes it's that like fun overwhelming factor, right? So, for example, when my son goes to grandma's house, I know there's no way he is sitting. That kid does not sit for 1 minute from the moment he walks into the door to the moment he leaves. Um, Even if he's watching TV, he's popping back up, he's running around the table, he's singing and dancing and jumping along with music and TV. And, there's just a lot of excitement. And he wants to see what grandma's cooking in the kitchen, and he runs in there. It's a constant chaos. And I know that lunchrooms, from working in schools and everything, it is constant chaos. So I would expect my son to not eat, honestly, in that environment. I don't think he would, because he has trouble when he's with a lot of kids. He wants to play. It's not on his radar to eat. It's almost like his hunger just shuts down. And could that happen to your child too? I'm sure it can. Um, so I'm going to give some tips in a few moments as well about what to happen. Like, because you can't change the lunchroom. So it's like, well, what do I do then? Like, I can't make him sit in the library by himself and eat just so he eats lunch. And like, no, I agree with you there. So what do we do? I will give some tips at the very end about what to do with that. But just thinking of reasons why it might, like I said, when you get that lunchbox back and there's still stuff in there, it's almost like you feel like a little defeated. You might feel a little angry. Like, note what feelings come up for you about why you're upset that they're not eating. And sometimes I think just understanding it or getting a different perspective, like, oh, that must be a chaotic and overwhelming sensory environment for my child that I know is very sensory. So yeah, I could totally see why he wouldn't eat there, or maybe in the classroom he might eat versus the lunchroom. Oh, okay, that was like too much, right? Not always. Some kids might thrive in that environment, right? Some kids, it might be that's definitely not the issue. That's not why they're not eating, but it's something to consider, right? I think it's just something to think about, something to keep in the back of your mind of like, okay, that might be why. That might be a potential reason, right? So, yeah, lots going on in that lunchroom. Even though they make, kids sit at their table, there's lots of different kids at the table. All of the kids open up their lunchbox. There's lots of smells. There's different foods. There's just a lot happening. It's noisy. People are online. They're cooking stuff in the kitchen. Lots of smells. So any kids that are very like sensitive to smells, sensitive to noise, sensitive to a lot of visual distractions, they might get distracted by that. Lunchroom's going to be a tough place to eat, I believe. That's just my opinion, maybe, but I think that's going to be hard. All right, moving on. Now, another reason why they might not be eating in school is someone sharing food with them. Like, are they actually eating, but maybe it's not the food from their lunchbox? Now, depending on how old your child is, maybe they can answer this, maybe they won't. I don't know, if there's someone really watching the class very closely versus very loose, supervision wherever they're eating. But that's something to think about. Like, did someone else give you food today? Um, you know, Someone else might share food with them or give them something that they didn't want to eat, but your child really wanted to eat it, right? Doing food swaps. And, it turns out that they never even ate the food that was in their own lunchbox because, Johnny came to school with this awesome thing and they gave some to your child. So maybe thinking and asking, like, okay, who did you eat from today, or who gave you some of that? That might bring up a whole new topic for you guys, but just maybe asking that question might reveal something that you haven't considered before. I don't know. All right. Two more reasons that I think that kids struggle with eating in food, uh, eating in the lunchroom is being self-conscious. Now, some people, now I would say this almost is like a problem that maybe even older kids might have rather than the younger. But I think younger kids, of course, can have this too, is being self-conscious of eating in front of other people, like not wanting to have other people watch them eat. Whether someone made fun of the way they ate at one point or just general fear about being made fun of or being bullied or picked on for what they're eating or how they're eating, that could be a factor too. People do things to avoid pain at all costs, and emotional pain counts as pain for sure. So if your child, hopefully not, hopefully if no one wants their kids to be bullied, that's almost like the worst reason, right? Why your kids aren't eating, in my opinion, is that someone was like making them feel bad about their eating. Um, but that's maybe something to talk to them about and bring up too is, did someone say something to you about your food or how you were eating or, laughed or anything? What was that, a part of it? I don't know. I honestly, and I don't even honestly know how to bring that topic up. I'm not a psychologist by trade. That's a good question for even a school psychologist or it's hard to have eyes in the lunchroom. It would be great if there was like a little camera and you could just kind of watch them while they're at school eating and to see what happens. But the truth is, there's maybe a few lunch monitors and, they're kind of floating around, maybe helping kids open things up, and they might miss some of this stuff, right? So even if it happens, an adult may not have seen it. And, it could be something though to possibly bring up or ask about with the school. Like, have they noticed anything in that area of making fun and self-conscious and that kind of thing. We always hope that that's not the case, but it's definitely one of the reasons that they could not be wanting to eat in school, especially if they were a child that was eating and suddenly had stopped. I might attribute that to feeling self-conscious about eating in front of other kids, maybe some specific kids. Um, Now my last one here for the reasons why, before I get into, some strategies that we can use just, to help remediate um, that problem of missing food, a big gap in time, right? The last one is anxiety. And kids that have a lot of anxiety, just in general, like they might be like very like school stressed anxiety about grades or performance or needing to get a good grade or do very well or score very high. That's pressure and anxiety pressure in school. It might be social anxiety. Being around other kids might um, make them feel anxious. Or it could be if they are and always have been a very picky eater and they're struggling with the food, that anxiety can come up. Anxiety comes in, I mean, we could talk about anxiety for like years. So, and not cover everything. And more kids are feeling anxiety, and it's just getting like younger and younger and younger. So, anxiety definitely could be part of the reason. And we do have a stress, fear, and anxiety subliminal that you might be interested in to try to help reprogram their mind a little bit. Of course, there's many reasons for anxiety. Not saying that that's going to be 100% their solution, but it definitely can help, and it certainly will not hurt. We've used those subliminals in our house too. I actually used to have an anxiety disorder. I had severe anxiety, and I'd have panic attacks when I was very young, actually. And part of it was food related, not fear of food specifically, but yeah, I was very, very anxious as a child, and I remember it would make my stomach feel horrible, and so that those butterflies in your stomach, you don't always want to eat when you feel anxious and stressed. It actually shuts down your hunger cues when you have high cortisol. So are they in an environment, or is there something happening that day that's stressing them out? That might they just might not have felt hungry in school because their cortisol was high and it closed off their, hunger cues in their brain, right? That's definitely a reason that they might not be eating. So those are, just a couple of reasons why we can try to figure out why they're not eating at school, especially, if they're eating. They might eat the same exact food at home and you might pack it for them and they'll eat it at home, but in school they're not, right? That's exactly what this episode was for. Now, let's just say you are packing that preferred food. And you know that they eat every single thing that you've packed for them, but the lunch comes home every day, like uneaten. And, some days, something might be gone, and who knows, are they just throwing it in the trash to make you happy because they know that when the food comes back, you get upset, you know? How do we actually get them to get the food in their bellies, right? Now we never want to force ever, of course, them to eat because, what if they're actually just not feeling well that day? And we don't want to override their body signals like, hey, don't eat. When you're not feeling good, you're under the weather, or maybe, God forbid, you're coming down with a stomach virus. I really hope that is never the case. But let's just say, like, you're not feeling good. Your body's telling you not to eat right now. Like, it's like, we don't want to force kids to eat ever because we don't know what they're feeling like. If their body's telling them don't eat, we have to respect that too. Right. But just in general, if it keeps happening like day after day, week after week, and you're like at your wit's end, we can try to increase their breakfast content, making it more nutrient dense breakfast, even just waking them up a few minutes earlier so they can have a longer breakfast or eat more. So basically loading them up at breakfast, and then when they come home, loading them up with more like healthy snacks, or almost like a second breakfast, or like a lunch after school when they come home, which might mean that, they don't eat as much at dinner time. And, sometimes we have to work around that a little bit, or expect that they won't eat as much at dinner time. Maybe dinner time then becomes almost like an after dinner snack. But, we might just want to kind of load up at those 2 times before and after school so that we know that they're getting in, food and nutrients and vitamins and minerals and things like that. That would be my suggestion in the interim until either you figure out why or you implement some of these strategies. And, if they start working, great, and they're eating at school, wonderful. But I would say not eating at school. So even if it's like a good 6 hours, that's a, if you're, when you're sleeping, you're not eating. It's a fast. It's an intermittent fast. And intermittent fasting is actually not bad for your body. It's actually quite good for your body. Now, we always recommend that kids eat about every 2 hours while they're awake, right? Which is usually what they're doing in school. They usually have a snack and then they have lunch. They might have a little afternoon snack and then they come home, probably have another snack. But, an intermittent fast is by no means going to harm the child, right? So, if they don't eat for 6 hours, like, at least hopefully they're drinking, but, drinking some water and going to the bathroom at least regularly. But if they don't eat during the day, it's not the absolute end of the world worst thing that could happen. So I wouldn't put my energy and stress into the lunchtime thing, because look at all the factors we just went over that could be affecting them and why they're not eating. I would still focus on, if your child is a picky eater, expanding their diet, decreasing stress and fear around food to get in more variety. And we could always work in to get like a few more foods in during the day. Like, this is all stuff that you can work on slowly. But if you at least can identify maybe why they're not eating, or what, which of these strategies work better, we can start, making little tweaks and stuff that will really make an impact. But I wouldn't spend all of my time stressing and worrying about the lunch thing. I would say, if you can get them to eat breakfast and something when they get home, they're going to make it. They're going to be okay. Of course, we want them to eat at school with their friends, and we love, and they say, "Oh, thanks. The lunch was so great, Mom. I ate everything." Of course, who doesn't want to hear that? But if they don't eat it, let's give them like a little bit of grace. Let's see if we can figure out some solutions. And I would put my strength and attention maybe on other areas. Again, like trying to expand diet rather than, focusing on them having to eat a meal in a certain place at a certain time. Because realistically, like I said, it's not going to harm them if they don't eat at school at a certain time, as long as they're eating other foods during the day and their stress and anxiety levels can come down if they are high at all. Getting those down would be more important, I'd say, than eating, this specific food in this specific place at this specific time. So when we can like let go of some of that control of, okay, like it doesn't have to be in the lunchroom at school. Okay, maybe it could be a snack in the classroom. Maybe it can be a bigger breakfast or a bigger after school snack lunch thing. When we can be a little bit more flexible and less stressed about it being a very specific way and like kind of let go of that, I think you'll see that they actually might end up eating more at lunch because we've relaxed our stress around that specific event, occurring a very certain way, so a lot of times when we release that, the things we want magically happen. And it's not so much magic as it is, law of attraction, just basic principles, but nevertheless, the outcome that we want sometimes will magically appear. So just letting go some of that, how it has to play out, how it has to look. As adults, we know that sometimes we might miss a meal, but we'll make up for it later. And, sometimes that's okay for us in the moment, but then when we think about it and try to apply it to our kids, it gets lost a little bit. And it's like, no, no, no. Well, they have to eat lunch at school. Like they have to. It's like, well, you missed your lunch today and you were fine, right? But we forget about that. So we'll try to like loosen some of these the feels around the lunchtime issues, and hopefully that will also really help and make an impact. So I really hope that all of the strategies and all of the things we talked about today have really maybe opened up your eyes, maybe given you a new perspective, given you some new ideas, and that this will be really beneficial to you, because I know that, moving forward into the rest of the school year, we've got a whole school year ahead of us. So, hopefully this will kind of set you guys up on like a good, right path this year between your child and food and you as the parent. Because, the feeder, the person giving the food is a very key player in this whole thing. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now, if you need more specific help, of course, we have tons and tons of help available on our website, on other podcast episodes, our new YouTube channel, which please subscribe to. And on there, I have way more reels and shorts and videos of quick tips and tricks. all sorts of interesting information. So please visit us and subscribe. It's at Foodology Feeding on pretty much all of the platforms. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day and a great rest of your school year. And I'm really excited because this is the year, guys, that you are going to have a foodie in your house, a little foodie, because you're going to implement all these amazing things and you're going to see all these great changes. So I'm so excited for you guys, and I'm happy to be part of your journey. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.